15 years ago, a young college student in Nashville vanished on a rainy night while walking from the library back to her dorm. And no one has seen her since. Her car was found on the banks of the Cumberland River, doors unlocked, belongings intact. But no signs of a struggle or escape. Police suspected a former officer who knew her might be involved. But with no body found, the investigation stalled. Over the years, the case gathered dust in the cold case files, leaving only questions no one dared to answer. Then one day, a tiny digital clue emerged. A thread, a metadata file, and from there a secret buried for over a decade began to surface in a way no one could have expected. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. On Sunday night, April 18, 2010, the rain had just stopped, leaving the streets of Nashville wet and glimmering under yellow streetlights. The sound of guitars drifted from bars along Broadway, faint and distant, mingling with the hum of tires on slick pavement. At Belmont University's campus, the library clock read 9:47 p.m. when Emma Cole, a 21-year-old senior, walked out of the building. She wrapped her scarf, hugged her backpack tightly to her chest, and her phone lit up with the last text she sent to her roommate. "Be back soon. Wait for me 15 minutes. No one replied. A security camera at the side gate captured her passing the parking lot, hurrying through puddles, reflecting dim sodium lights. A gust of wind flipped her coat, and Emma paused for half a second, glancing back toward the alley behind her, as if she heard footsteps. No one else was in the frame. She kept walking, her figure shrinking, then disappearing around a corner toward Edge Hill Village. At 10:12 p.m., her phone signal dropped off the network. By 10:30, her roommate texted repeatedly, getting no response. At 11 o'clock, she called, only to hear the voicemail. By midnight, light rain fell again on the empty streets. Emma's Ford Focus sat untouched in the parking lot, still locked. At 1:23 a.m., the Davidson County Sheriff's Office received the first missing person call. On the other end, a trembling voice said, "My friend left the library tonight and hasn't come home. No one knows where she is." In a city where music never stops, someone had vanished, and no one saw her again. The next morning, the rain had cleared, and Nashville was cloaked in a thin fog, with damp air clinging to the tin roofs around Belmont's campus. 2 Davidson County Sheriff's patrol cars were already parked outside the dorm by dawn. Lieutenant Darren Hales, who handled the night shift, arrived at the scene at 6:40 a.m. He jotted brief notes as Emma's roommate recounted. Emma left the library at 9:47, texted she was on her way back. Then, nothing. A simple statement, but it left a heavy void in the cramped room smelling of stale coffee. By 8 o'clock, police deployed a search team within a 2-mile radius of the campus. The previous night's rain left the streets glossy, tire tracks blending into puddles. Officers carried Emma's photo, knocking on doors at apartments and late-night convenience stores along 12th Avenue South. A store clerk recalled, a young woman passed by around 10. She was soaked, pale, clutching her backpack. "I thought someone was following her." When Hales asked if anyone was behind her, the man shook his head slowly. "I'm not sure, but it felt like someone was across the street." Meanwhile, the tech team pulled traffic camera footage from the area. A clip from 12th Avenue showed a few blurry frames, Emma's figure hurrying past a turn, a car's headlights sweeping by, and behind her, a dark silhouette moving parallel. No clear face, no distinct shape, just a shadow, about 6 feet tall, vanishing as she turned down the sloping road toward Edge Hill Village. By noon, the search expanded to Riverside Parks. That's when a patrol unit found Emma's silver Ford Focus parked about 2 miles from campus on the Cumberland River's edge. The doors were unlocked, windows fogged with condensation. Inside, her purse and wallet were untouched. Student ID, notebook, dorm keys, all neatly on the back seat. Only her phone was missing. No signs of a struggle, no unfamiliar footprints, no mud. Hales stood by the water's edge, staring at the calm river, its slow current carrying away a few stray leaves from the rain. Everything seemed unnaturally clean, as if someone had erased all evidence before they arrived. He ordered the scene sealed, and the forensic team swept for fingerprints and used UV lights to search for bodily fluids. Results: negative. Only Emma's prints were found. By afternoon, the first report was filed at headquarters. No signs of force, no clear motive, no location data, a clean disappearance. High likelihood of staging. That evening, Emma's photo aired on the 10 o'clock news. Belmont University student missing under mysterious circumstances. Police seek public tips. Outside, light rain fell again, blurring the yellow tape around the silent car. A young officer looked at the river and muttered, "If she went in there, we'd have found her by now." But the river stayed quiet, reflecting the city's flickering lights. Somewhere in Nashville's damp chill, Emma Cole's last trace had vanished, as if she'd never existed. Emma's Ford Focus remained sealed off by the Cumberland River as the investigation team returned to a temporary command post on Belmont's campus. Lieutenant Darren Hales stood before a large screen displaying the security footage from the night of April 18th. Rain blurred most of the images, but Hales didn't miss a single frame. From 9:30 to 10 p.m., the tech team reviewed 17 cameras along Emma's possible route, from Belmont's library to Edge Hill Village, then down to the riverbank where her car was found. Most cameras were useless. Rain smeared the lenses, and streetlight glare overexposed the footage. Only one ATM camera at Tremont and 10th Avenue worked properly. Between 9:45 and 10 p.m., it captured a dark-colored SUV, possibly an older Ford Explorer or Chevrolet Tahoe, appearing 3 times in the same frame. First, it crept past a convenience store, paused briefly, then left the shot. 5 minutes later, it returned, driving the opposite way and stopping at the curb. The third time, at 9:57, it appeared just as Emma's figure vanished from a second camera at the head of Edge Hill. The SUV stopped, low beams on, someone stepped out briefly, then got back in, and the vehicle drove off toward the Cumberland River. Investigators replayed the video repeatedly. The license plate was nearly unreadable. Rain streaked across the camera lens, smudging the characters into glowing streaks. Technicians enhanced the contrast, trying to clarify the frame, but only caught reflective glints on the dashboard. One detail silenced the room, in a frame frozen at the 8th second. A round, metallic object on the dashboard reflected the pale yellow streetlight. Hales zoomed in 3 times. It looked like a badge, the kind worn on a police officer's chest. A brief silence followed. Detective Helen Amott said softly, "Could be someone posing as a cop." Hales nodded, eyes fixed on the screen. Or worse, someone who used to be one. The team began reviewing vehicle registrations for security personnel, private investigators, and volunteer units in the area. Within a 10-mile radius of Belmont, 137 black SUVs were registered to law enforcement or former officers. Identifying the vehicle in the video became the investigation's sole focus. The next morning's technical report confirmed the dashboard reflection matched the size and placement of a Davidson County police badge used before 2008. This aligned with gear often kept by retired private security personnel. Hales ordered a review of records for officers or security staff disciplined or fired between 2005 and 2010. At the scene, investigators returned to Edge Hill Village. A resident on the 2nd floor of a red brick building said, "That night, I heard a car brake hard. Thought it was an argument. When I looked out, I only saw a dark SUV turn south, headlights off, no plate." The timing matched the video perfectly. By afternoon, rain returned. The team sat in a makeshift meeting room, dim light and the smell of damp paper. On the whiteboard, Hales wrote in large letters, "Black SUV, police badge." Below it, 3 theories. She was stopped by someone claiming to be police. She was assisted, and then driven away. The person knew Emma or her routine. No one said more. They all knew the investigation had veered into dangerous territory where the perpetrator might be wearing a uniform meant to protect. In the temporary investigation room on the third floor of the Davidson County Sheriff's Office, a city map was covered in red pins and strings. Lieutenant Darren Hales, eyes shadowed from 2 sleepless nights, stood before a whiteboard with the latest facts. Black SUV, badge, seen at 9:57 p.m., below, in bold. Posing as police. The forensics team confirmed the metallic reflection on the SUV's dashboard closely matched a 2008 Davidson County Police badge, discontinued when uniforms changed in 2009. This suggested the driver was likely a former officer or someone with access to pre-2009 equipment. Hales ordered a review of all officers, private security, and contract guards on duty the night of April 18, 2010. By noon, the list was narrowed to 14 names, all working night shifts or present within 5 miles of Edge Hill Village. The team pulled GPS logs from patrol cars, tracking movements from 9 o'clock to 10:30 p.m. Each vehicle appeared as a blip on the map, positioned elsewhere: Music Row, Brentwood, Charlotte Pike. None were near Edge Hill. Radio logs also confirmed no units reported civilian contact during that time. No one from our side was there, Hales said, voice low and firm. The room fell silent, save for the hum of the air conditioner and a pen tapping lightly on the table. So who was driving that SUV? The answer came from a name Detective Helena Mott found while reviewing retired personnel vehicle registrations. On the 7th line, Victor Lang, 58, retired 2009, owner of a black Chevrolet Tahoe, plate 4JX227, same make, same model year as the SUV in the ATM video. Lang had patrolled the south sector, including Edge Hill Village. Hales scanned the file, pausing at voluntary retirement, personal reasons. Personnel records noted Lang received an internal warning in 2008 for excessive force on duty. No criminal record, no psychological issues. But Hales remembered the name. Lang was a gruff, stubborn officer who clashed with superiors. That afternoon they visited his home in Antioch, a quiet neighborhood 20 minutes from downtown. The small house had a neatly trimmed lawn, the black Tahoe parked in the driveway, plate matching the record. Lang, a silver-haired man with broad shoulders, opened the door cautiously. When Hales showed his badge and asked to talk, Lang nodded, voice gravelly. "What's this about, Lieutenant? You still have the vehicle registered to you, Mr. Lang?" "Yeah, runs fine. I was home all Sunday night, didn't go anywhere." The answer came too smoothly, unconvincing. When asked if anyone could confirm, Lang said, "Just me. Watched baseball, went to bed." He was cooperative, invited them inside, but his eyes darted away whenever Edge Hill or the Tahoe came up. After the visit, Hales requested traffic camera data from I-65, the route from Lang's house to Edge Hill Village. The next morning, technicians reported a camera on the 8th Avenue overpass captured a black SUV, plate 4JX227, heading downtown at 9:58 p.m. The footage was unmistakable, Lang's vehicle. Hales reviewed the clip repeatedly. At the 5th second, streetlights clearly reflected the driver's face, Lang himself. The evidence was strong, but not enough for an arrest. Someone else could have used his car, or he might have had another reason to be in the area. Still, Hales noted in his report, Victor Lang, retired officer, vehicle match, false statement, potential person of interest. That afternoon, they brought Lang in for informal questioning. In the cold, bright interrogation room, Lang sat upright, hands clasped. Hales placed a printed frame from the camera on the table, pointing to the 9:58 p.m. timestamp. "You said you were home all night. Explain this." Lang stared at the image, silent for a few seconds, then said slowly, "Maybe I went to get gas, I don't recall. Someone could have borrowed my car. I don't track exact times." Hales didn't buy it. The answer was too careful, too calculated. But without direct evidence tying Lang to Emma, he couldn't be detained. As Lang left, Hales said, "We'll see you again, Mr. Lang." After he was gone, Halen Amat placed a thin file on the table. He was involved in a 2007 missing person case, she said. Another female student, also from Belmont, never solved. Hales froze, his eyes darkening. Pull all of Lang's old files, he said. I want to know exactly what he did in his last year with the badge. A week later, Nashville was still drizzling. On the Cumberland River, mist rose like smoke, shrouding the spot where Emma's Ford Focus was found. Police had cleared the scene, but yellow tape still hung loosely on the steel fence, flapping in the wind with a dry, brittle sound. 7 days had passed since April 18th. No texts, no calls, no credit card activity. Emma's phone remained off, its last GPS signal at Edge Hill, 9:47 p.m. Digital data was like a map cut short. In the investigation room, detectives memorized every time stamp, 9:47. Emma left the library. 9:51, passed the south parking lot. 9:57, her figure vanished from the ATM camera. 9:58, Victor Lang's black SUV appeared. Everything led to the same point, then dropped into a void. All the data stops at 9:47 p.m., Hales said, voice hoarse from lack of sleep. He stared at the map spread across the table, marked with scribbled lines tracing Emma's usual route from the library to her dorm, just 1.8 miles. Short, familiar, well-lit path, but with 2 blind spots, an alley behind Belmont's chapel, and a curve near Reservoir Park. In those gaps, she disappeared. The team recreated her route. A female officer, dressed like Emma that night, brown coat, black backpack, white sneakers, walked from the library to the dorm, carrying a GPS tracker and stopwatch. The process was filmed from public camera angles. They timed it, 16 minutes, 42 seconds. Exactly as Emma's last text promised, be back soon, wait for me 15 minutes. The precision was chilling. On the 8th day, Nashville police deployed a special dive team. They lowered magnetic sensors and sonar into the Cumberland River, scanning for metal objects the size of a phone or backpack. The river was slow, the water murky. The sensors hummed steadily, low and rhythmic. But after 2 days, nothing was found. No phone, no clothing, no trace of Emma. Beneath the river, only mud and debris. As the divers surfaced, rain fell again on Nashville. One whispered, she was never down there. The media shifted tone from hope to suspicion. Some articles mentioned the black SUV, questioning if a kidnapper in uniform was a former officer. The Davidson County Sheriff's Office stayed silent. Hales declined interviews, telling the one reporter allowed access. We're working around the clock, but this isn't a normal missing person case anymore. Inside the station, the case was temporarily labeled missing person, suspicious circumstance. It meant no proof of a crime, but every sign pointed to human intervention. A suspicious disappearance. Hales pinned the file to the board, next to a red marker note. 9:47, everything stops. Detective Helen Amat rechecked Emma's phone data, but the call log was empty. The last activity was the text to her roommate. After that, nothing. No social media logins, no location pings, no bank app access. It was as if she'd been severed from the world. On the 10th day, Hales returned to Edge Hill Village. He stood at the corner where the ATM camera caught the SUV. The wind carried the damp smell of asphalt and old rainwater. Yellow streetlights reflected off closed windows, the street silent. He wondered if she walked here and someone stopped, opened a car door, flashed a badge. Would she have trusted them? No one answered. 10 days after Emma Cole vanished, the Cumberland River's water receded, exposing a muddy bank and flattened grass from days of flooding. The Davidson County Sheriff's forensic team returned to the scene, their 3rd visit, at Hales' direct request. He believed the high water had hidden something, a small detail to restart the cooling trail. Nashville's sky was overcast. Fog, clinging to riverside trees. Below the bridge, the sealed-off area expanded by 30 meters, yellow tape flapping in the wind. Forensic technicians scanned the ground with UV lights and magnetic detectors, logging every step. The mud had dried, the ground faintly cracked, but it held traces of what had passed through: plastic scraps, bottle caps, stray wires. Each item was bagged and numbered. Hales stood on the bank, watching their every move, silent, as if afraid to break the stillness enveloping the river. Near noon, a young technician shouted, "Got something here." 8 meters from Emma's car, under half a hand's depth of mud, they unearthed a pale green plastic bottle, a common brand, cap still sealed. It seemed ordinary, but when cleaned with a specialized solution, UV light revealed a large fingerprint smudged on the side. The team paused. Every detail was photographed, coordinates logged, and the item sealed. When the evidence reached the lab, preliminary results stunned the team. The fingerprint didn't match any search team members or Emma. The AFIS system took less than an hour to identify it. Victor Lang. In the stark white room of the Davidson County Forensic Lab, Lang's digital file appeared on the screen: former officer, 58, retired 2009, living in Antioch. Hales read the data repeatedly, his chest heavy. A bottle discarded 8 meters from Emma's car, with the fingerprints of a man who claimed he was home all night. The situation was more complex than anyone had anticipated. That afternoon, Hales called an emergency meeting. Investigators, forensic reps, and the sheriff's office attorney were present. The screen displayed the plastic bottle, marked with a red pin on the scene map. Helena Mott, handling witness analysis, said, "No signs, the bottle was recently tossed. The dried mud suggests it's been there about 10 days, matching Emma's disappearance." Hales crossed his arms, scanning the room. A former officer lied about his whereabouts that night, and now his fingerprints are near the victim's car. "I want to know why." The reaction from higher-ups was far from pleasant. The emergence of a former cop as a potential person of interest sent shockwaves through the department. The captain, in charge of personnel, emphasized, "There's no evidence Lang was there when the girl disappeared. A bottle doesn't convict him." Hales replied dryly, "True, but it also doesn't explain why his fingerprint was at the scene, a place only the victim and the perpetrator would have been." The bottle underwent a second analysis, this time with an advanced process to determine the fingerprint's adhesion time. Results showed the print likely appeared within 24-48 hours before the object was submerged, right within the window of Emma's disappearance. No one dared call it a coincidence anymore. The next day, Hales and Helena returned to Lang's home. When asked about his fingerprint at the scene, Lang frowned, gave a faint smirk. "I fish out there often, have for years. If you search the Cumberland River banks, you'd probably find dozens of things I've left behind." The answer was short, slick, but his eyes avoided Hale's gaze. With no legal grounds for arrest, Lang was officially listed as a person of interest. Hales signed the internal order and requested discreet monitoring of his activities: credit, phone, movements. "If he's innocent, we'll know soon enough," he said. "If not, he's waiting for a chance to leave town." News of the fingerprint results leaked quickly. Nashville media pounced: former cop's fingerprint found at Belmont student disappearance scene. The sheriff's office PR team scrambled to hold a press conference, stating, "No one is considered a suspect at this time," but internally, pressure mounted. A senior officer told Hales privately, "You're digging into the system's own past, Darren. If Lang's dirty, we'll have to prove it inch by inch." On the morning of April 29th, Nashville was thick with fog, sunlight blocked by heavy gray cloud. In the Davidson County Sheriff's investigation room, the air was heavy with the smell of stale coffee and damp paper. 11 days had passed since Emma Cole vanished. No explanation, no trace. The bottle, with Victor Lang's fingerprint, sat in the evidence locker, a silent challenge. But that morning, a young data technician, Greg Nolan, knocked on Lieutenant Darren Hale's door, holding a thick file. "You need to see this," he said, voice tinged with excitement and caution. Greg explained he'd contacted AT&T, Emma's carrier, to request the final ping record from her phone before it went offline. The carrier's system logged periodic cell tower data, even with GPS disabled. The last signal, recorded at 12:41 a.m. on April 19, 2010, didn't come from Nashville. Instead, it originated from a small tower near Lebanon, Tennessee, about 35 miles east. The room went silent. Hales stared at the bolded report line. Final tower ping. Lebanon East Station, Wilson County. His throat felt dry. 3 hours after she disappeared, Helena Mott said softly. It means Emma's phone, or Emma herself, was taken out of the city. It was the first break since the Ford Focus was found. The team immediately mapped a route based on the tower's location. Interstate I-40 was the only direct path from Nashville to Lebanon, a 40-minute drive. If the signal pinged at 12:41 a.m., the driver left Nashville around 11:50 p.m. Where was Emma during those hours? And why was her phone still active? Hales tasked Greg with pulling GPS records for vehicles with trackers on I-40 during that window. The initial list included hundreds of vehicles, but when techs cross-referenced data from Victor Lang's 2008 Chevrolet Tahoe, equipped with default OnStar tracking, the results stunned the team. OnStar logged Lang's vehicle leaving Antioch at 11:46 p.m., entering I-40 eastbound, and temporarily losing signal at 12:32 a.m., heading toward Lebanon. When it reconnected, data showed it returning to Nashville at 2:05 a.m. The entire trip lasted about 2.5 hours, matching the exact time Emma's phone pinged its last signal. Hales slammed his pen on the desk, eyes locked on the movement chart displayed on the screen, a green line connecting Nashville to Lebanon and back. This can't be a coincidence, he said. His car moved with the phone signal. The timing matches to the minute. Helena Mott immediately suggested expanding the investigation to Wilson County. Local forensics were mobilized to sweep remote areas along I-40, particularly abandoned rest stops and parking lots. Under dim fluorescent lights, a map spread across the table, red pins lining the highway corridor. If she was taken, Helena said quietly, Lebanon was the first stop. That afternoon, Hales signed a request for a court order to access all of Victor Lang's OnStar data for 2 weeks before and after the disappearance. Every route, every stop was retraced. Most of Lang's trips were around Antioch and Franklin, except for the night of April 18th. That was the only time in months his car left the city at night and headed east. When summoned for another questioning, Lang remained calm. I don't recall exactly, maybe I drove to clear my head. Insomnia. You guys get it, right? You drove to Lebanon in the middle of the night? I like empty roads, less traffic. Hales stared at him, voice steady but cold. What about Emma Cole's phone? It pinged there, same time as your car. Got an explanation? Lang gave a slight smile, eyes indifferent. You're seeing what you want to see. I was a cop. I know how investigations work. A ping doesn't mean I drove that girl. No one in the room reacted, but the silence was heavy as stone. As Lang left, Hales gripped his pen so tightly the plastic snapped. He knew the man was telling half-truths and hiding the rest. The next day, techs reconstructed the I-40 route using 3D mapping. Police found a small wooded area 6 miles west of Lebanon, where a phone signal could reach the Lebanon East Tower. An old parking lot led to a trail toward an abandoned construction site. There, ATAND records showed unusual activity that night. 4 devices connected within a 10-minute window, then all went offline. One matched Emma's phone ID. Helena sighed, hand on the map. We didn't just lose her in Nashville, we're chasing a journey. Hales replied, a journey someone planned. That day, the internal report marked a turning point. Emma Cole was likely removed from Nashville in the early hours of April 19, 2010. It was the first time abduction appeared in the file. That evening, Hales sat alone in his office. On his desk, 2 photos lay side by side, the Ford Focus by the river, and a satellite image of I-40 stretching like a scar across Tennessee. Outside, rain pattered on the tin roof, he whispered. Almost to himself, she was never in the river. She was taken, and someone got her out of Nashville without leaving a trace. On the afternoon of April 30th, 20 hours after the Lebanon Tower report, Hale's team drove along I-40 eastbound. The road was slick, mist lingering, silver light streaking across the windshield. A mile from the Lebanon East Tower, they stopped at Cedar Grove Inn, a rundown two-story motel tucked behind pines off a side road into town. The neon sign was faded, a few letters flickering in the late afternoon. Hales peered through the car window, a chill running down his spine. He knew, if any place in Lebanon tied to Emma's final phone signal, it was here. The motel manager, a middle-aged woman named Doris, greeted them with unease when she saw their badges. When Hales showed paperwork and asked about April 18th, she paused, then nodded slowly. "I remember a couple arriving late, near 10 at night. A young girl, blonde, looked tired and a bit scared. With her was an older man, silver hair, tall, broad. He handled check-in, had a Middle Tennessee drawl, signed as Mark Delaney. Doris said they stayed one night, checking out before sunrise. The girl said nothing, just held a small bag, standing behind the man. When Hales asked for more details, Doris frowned, recalling. He was polite, but cold. The girl kept her eyes down, like she was afraid to mess up. I thought they were father and daughter, but the way he held her arm in the lobby, it wasn't like that." Her words silenced the room. When techs checked the motel's records, they found the registration form torn at the corner, handwritten with M. Delaney, and a Tennessee driver's license number that matched the state's format but didn't exist in any database. A fake Murfreesboro address. Everything was meticulously staged. Helena Mott asked about the motel's security cameras. Doris pointed to the front desk. "We've got two, one at the entrance, one in the second-floor hallway. But the system glitched last week, and old data got wiped." Techs requested a full hard drive backup anyway. Back at the Nashville lab, they began recovering deleted files, and there, a clue emerged. The drive held hundreds of deleted video files, most empty. But in the system folder, metadata remained, hidden data logging file names and recording times. One line stopped Greg, the data tech, cold. File name, April 18, 2000, 10-2000, 214 Vlan. MP4, created April 18, 2010, 22 hours, 14 minutes, and 36 seconds. Deleted, April 19, 2010, 6 hours, 2 minutes, and 11 seconds. No video remained, but the name was undeniable. Hales stood behind Greg, staring at the screen. "Vlang," he said, voice hoarse. "Not a coincidence." Greg nodded. "The system auto-names files based on the login ID. If someone changed the user account on the server, the username tags each recorded file, meaning the person accessing the camera data that night logged in as Vlang." The name cut through the lab's air like a cold blade. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was Lang's first appearance in digital evidence at the exact location of Emma's final phone signal. The next day, Hales and Helena returned to the motel with a court order, seizing the original guest log and a copy of the keycard for room 212, Mark Delaney's room. Inside, everything was spotless. Fresh sheets, empty trash, no clear DNA traces, but under the bed, a tech found a single long blonde hair caught on an old suitcase wheel. The hair was sent to the lab for comparison with Emma's DNA from a personal comb in her dorm. Preliminary results, 99.8% match. When the news reached Hales, he said nothing. He leaned against the wall, staring at Emma's portrait on the board. "She was here," he said softly. And Lang was with her. That evening, an emergency meeting convened at the station in silence. Red marker on the whiteboard read, "Cedar Grove Inn, April 18th. Helena summarized, "A witness saw a girl matching Emma Cole's description. Room registered under a fake name. Camera data deleted, but metadata tagged Lang. DNA match. No doubt, Lang was the last person with her." The biggest hurdle remained direct evidence. No video, no confession, no witness saw them leave. The DA's office urged caution. Metadata doesn't prove who was there. It only shows who logged into the computer. But Hales knew Lang wasn't just the login, he was the orchestrator. If he's smart enough to wipe data, he knows we can't convict without a body, he said quietly. The final days of May passed in heavy silence. After the Cedar Grove Inn discovery, the investigation stalled. No body, no blood, no DNA beyond the single hair. And though it matched Emma, the law didn't allow conviction on indirect evidence alone. Victor Lang remained free, living in his small Antioch house, occasionally driving his black Tahoe around Percy Priest Lake, as if nothing had happened. In early June, the forensics lab issued its final report: no foreign DNA detected in room 212, no traces of human decomposition or organic fluids within 100 meters of the motel. The conclusion was a cold verdict on the investigation itself. Helena Mott read it, closed the file, and placed it on Hale's desk without a word. They both understood the case had hit a dead end. The state DA declined an arrest warrant, citing insufficient direct evidence of Emma Cole being harmed or unlawfully detained. Legally, she was just a missing person, an adult who could walk away from her life at any time. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew. The case was slipping into the cold zone, where files gathered dust and names faded. On July 11, 2011, nearly 15 months after Emma vanished, the case was officially reclassified. Cold case, missing person. On paper, it was just a clerical move. For Darren Hales, it was the heaviest failure of his 20-year career. He stood in the archive room, staring at the cardboard file labeled EC041810, then silently signed the transfer form. As he left, the fluorescent lights behind him dimmed, leaving a cold darkness, much like the fate of the girl who vanished from Nashville. A week later, he requested a transfer to major crimes, leaving the case to a younger detective, John Kincaid, newly assigned to the cold case unit. Kincaid, just over 40, a former military police officer, had a calm demeanor and an eerily sharp memory. On his first day with the file, he reviewed every page, every photo, lingering on Emma's image. Then he tied the file shut and said to the clerk beside him, "No body doesn't mean no crime. We just haven't found the right equation." Kincaid kept all original evidence in a locked drawer, defying protocol to send it to central storage. He periodically visited Lebanon, sitting at a cafe across from Cedar Grove Inn, chatting with locals, watching faces pass by. No one knew exactly what he was looking for. He only returned to Nashville with a few added lines in his supplemental report. No change in status, no new leads. Subject Lang remains in Antioch, has not left the state. Occasionally, Hales, now retired, called, asking, "You still holding on to that case?" Kincaid would chuckle. "Holding, not clinging. I'm just waiting." Years passed and file EC041810 was buried under hundreds of others, but on Kincaid's desk, Emma Cole's laminated photo stayed pinned beside his board. Each time he passed, he paused for a few seconds, as if reminding himself an equation still needed solving. Outside, Nashville changed. New buildings rose. Broadway bars glowed brightly each night. But somewhere, in a small third-floor room at the Davidson County Sheriff's Office, a file box sat still. On its faded label, Emma Cole, missing, April 18, 2010. No one asked about her anymore, but John Kincaid arrived each morning, poured coffee, and opened that file like a ritual. He didn't believe in coincidences or perfect disappearances, and each time he closed the file, he muttered the same old phrase, a vow yet unfulfilled: "No body doesn't mean no crime. We just haven't found the right equation." By August 2020, Nashville was barely recognizable. The city had grown, glass skyscrapers replacing old parking lots, while the Cumberland River flowed quietly through downtown. The site of a disappearance time had dusted over. In a small third-floor room at the Davidson County Sheriff's Office, file EC041810 sat on a shelf beside other cold case folders. And from there, the case's second journey began. In 2020, the Tennessee Cold Case Initiative, a joint effort between the State Justice Department and FBI, launched to review unresolved missing persons cases from the past 2 decades. A list of nearly 120 files was selected. At number 47 was Emma Cole, missing since April 18, 2010. When the file was pulled, Detective John Kincaid, now a senior investigator with TCCI, gave a faint smile. He'd waited 10 years for this moment. On September 4, 2020, Emma's old items, her coat, backpack, and the hair from Cedar Grove Inn, were sent to the Federal Genetics Lab in Quantico. Kincaid was present for the evidence sealing, signing the form with a firm hand. "This time, Tech will tell the rest," he said quietly, almost to himself. 3 weeks later, Quantico's preliminary report came back. No foreign DNA on the hair or personal items. The brief message deflated Kincaid. He'd hoped for a link, skin, sweat, even dead cells, anything tying Lang to the evidence. But it was still empty. Yet, at the report's end, a small note stopped him cold. Detected a dark gray polyester microfiber, 3.2 mm, adhered to the inner collar of the victim's coat. Fiber structure and dye compound matched Tennessee State Police uniform, 2009 model. Kincaid read it 3 times. The microfiber, a detail 2010 tech couldn't detect, opened a new path. Emma's coat, sealed since day 1, never left police custody, meaning the fiber was there before collection. "Someone touched her, someone in a uniform," he said, voice low, almost a whisper. He immediately called the Tennessee field office to report the find. When he explained, Supervising Agent Monica Evers asked one question: 2009 uniform, who had access to it back then? The answer chilled Kincaid. Only state police and a few retired officers allowed to keep old uniforms, mostly for training or display. On that short list, Victor Lang's name appeared again. On October 12, 2020, Emma Cole's case was officially escalated to federal jurisdiction under FBI oversight due to elements involving law enforcement personnel. The Davidson County Sheriff's Office had to hand over all files, evidence, and original data. For many, it was just procedure. For Kincaid, it was a sign the case had finally left the dead zone. A team of federal agents was formed, working with Kincaid and 2 TCCI techs. They reviewed everything from scratch: Belmont Library, ATM camera, Cedar Grove Inn metadata. A massive timeline was built, detailed to the minute. Looking at the screen with hundreds of data points, Kincaid pointed to a red-marked entry, 3.2 mm gray polyester fiber, origin police uniform, and said slowly, "This is what we didn't have 10 years ago, and now it'll take us where she went." In internal meetings, the FBI focused on Lang's connection to the department's old uniform inventory. Records showed that upon retiring in 2009, Lang was allowed to keep an original uniform with a metal chest badge. No one knew when it disappeared. No record of its return. In an old photo from his retirement party, Lang wore that uniform, the same shade as the polyester fiber on Emma's coat. The case was recoded as TN Missing 2010-47, classified high priority under the FBI's Project Cold Reach. A joint agency report ended with a rare, almost poetic note: "Time may fade bloodstains, but it cannot erase a fiber." That night, Kincaid sat alone in his office. On his desk, Emma's faded photo and an enlarged print of the polyester fiber. Outside, Nashville glowed, alien to 2010's memory. He touched the photo lightly, whispering, "10 years, Emma. This time, we won't let him vanish with you." In November 2020, as the investigation went federal, the TN Missing 2010-47 team began re-examining all digital evidence. A veteran FBI digital forensics expert, Eli Hartman, was sent from Quantico to Nashville to analyze Emma Cole's personal devices. Sealed in evidence storage for a decade. In Box 3, he found a 2009 Dell Inspiron laptop and a black USB drive labeled ECUSB. In 2010, both were deemed useless. The hard drive had mechanical errors, and the USB wouldn't open. But with current tech, things could change. Hartman spent nearly 3 days recovering the hard drive, using bit-level imaging, copying every bit, even deleted or damaged data. On the 4th day, the screen displayed, "Welcome, Emma." The interface was dated, but inside was a trove that stunned him. Dozens of school files, research reports, Belmont campus photos, and a hidden folder named intern_oct09, matching the time Emma interned at the Tennessee Justice Department. In that folder, Hartman found internal access logs showing the laptop connected to the state government network via VPN. Access reserved for internal staff. This was odd. Emma was only a part-time intern. The ECUSB drive held 3 encrypted files, no extensions, labeled R1, R2, R3, R3. Hartman reported this discovery to Supervising Agent Monica Evers. An emergency meeting was immediately convened. If these files truly belong to the Justice Department system, we're looking at a potential state-level security breach, Monica said. Open them. The decryption took nearly a week. The encryption algorithm was AES 256, a security level typically used only in government data. No student could create this layer of encryption on their own unless guided or copied from the original system. On November 18th, at 3:42 a.m., the decryption server at Quantico reported completion. The first file, R1, was a data table with 42 names, along with codes, old addresses, and notes relocated under Federal Witness Protection Program, active. The second file was a list of times and relocation locations extracted from drug and organized crime case files from 2005-2009. The third file was an internal memo titled Proposed Witness Reassignment, Confidential, DOJ Nashville Division. There was no doubt. Emma had copied highly classified data. The only question, why did she have it? When reviewing her work history, the investigation team discovered Emma had interned under the Special Records Room of DOJ Tennessee, the department responsible for storing protected witness documents. Her direct supervisor that year was Donald F. Reeves, a technical specialist who had been internally investigated for negligence in managing classified data, but was later cleared. Reeves retired in 2012 and lost contact thereafter. Kincaid, now the team's primary advisor, read the report and remained silent for a long time. If she accidentally discovered or copied that data, he said, then it means someone in the system wanted it back. She wasn't just a victim of a kidnapping, she was someone who knew too much. Hartman cross-referenced the file creation times, the night of April 16, 2010, just 2 days before Emma disappeared, meaning she had just finished copying it, without time to transfer or report it to anyone. The remaining question, how did the perpetrator know? The next technical analysis report revealed a chilling detail. On Emma's laptop was installed remote access software, with the last login by user Vlang_admin at 10:41 p.m. on April 18, 2010. The exact window when she vanished. The account was traced back to an IP address belonging to the Davidson County Police Network, but later deleted from the original server. Only someone with internal access could perform such an operation. That night, in the FBI's Nashville office, Monica Evers stood before the screen, blue light reflecting on her stern face. Assume Lang wasn't just a sicko. Assume he knew the girl had taken the data. Kincaid nodded, voice low, and was tasked by someone to handle it in a way that left no traces. The investigation shifted entirely. From a personal disappearance case, it became an internal security case, potentially involving an old network within law enforcement agencies. Lang, a former officer who collaborated with DOJ from 2006-2008 in the witness transport program, was now not just the prime suspect. He could be the final link between insiders and external criminals. The FBI urgently opened a parallel file, Operation Silencer, code for all investigations related to disappearances of witnesses in the southern region during the same period. A leaked internal report showed at least 7 witnesses from the R1 list had been relocated but never arrived at their destinations. All were protected under false names, and all related data was erased from the system right after April 2010. This is no longer a disappearance case, Monica said in a meeting with the FBI Southeast Regional Director. This is a government-level crime cover-up. Kincaid felt a chill spread down his spine. 10 years pursuing Emma, he always believed Lang was the culprit. But now, the picture was bigger. Perhaps he was just hired, or manipulated, to clean up traces. She didn't disappear, he said, voice heavy. She was silenced, foreseeing a secret the whole system didn't want anyone to mention. In the report sent to Washington on November 25, 2020, the conclusion line was carefully typed, then underlined in red. Digital evidence recovered from victim's laptop suggests involvement of internal personnel with law enforcement access. Case TN missing 2010-47, officially reclassified as federal criminal conspiracy, active. December 2020, Nashville was bitterly cold, with east winds from the Cumberland River whipping through newly built glass buildings. In the federal task force office, white lights shone on walls full of maps, red strings, stacks of files piled high. Since the data in Emma's laptop was decrypted, everything had changed. From a seemingly cold disappearance case, the investigation had escalated to federal level, with signs of an internal conspiracy. But what John Kincaid still lacked after 10 years was evidence that Emma was alive or dead. He needed a sign, anything to prove she still existed out there somewhere. One early week morning, financial agent Marcus Hill, recently transferred from the Charlotte office, brought in a thick file, slamming it on Kincaid's desk. "I think I found what you need," he said. The file was titled, Bank Activity Records, Emma L. Cole. Hill explained, "We backtraced all of Emma's accounts, including secondary ones, opened under her student name. Most were closed mid-2010, inactive as you know. But there's a strange transaction, 2 years later, in June 2012. Kincaid frowned, leaning in to read closely. The statement clearly showed, withdraw, $1,200 via physical ID verification, location. Asheville, North Carolina. Asheville, a quiet mountain town nearly 300 miles from Nashville, with no reason to connect to Emma. More importantly, the transaction was at a linked Wells Fargo branch, using a temporary ID card under the name Ellen March. Kincaid looked up. Ellen March? Hill nodded, pushing over an attached verification sheet. Birth date, July 19, 1989, identical to Emma Cole's. Only the last name and birthplace differ. For a few seconds, the room was dead silent. Kincaid stared at the line, lips pressed tight. Someone withdrawing money with a fake ID, same birth date, 2 years after Emma vanished. If this isn't her, it's someone deliberately using her identity. Hill added, or if it is her, meaning Emma survived at least until 2012. The FBI immediately requested camera data from the Asheville bank branch, but the storage system had been wiped after 5 years, leaving only internal logs. The transaction occurred at 2:16 p.m. on June 3, 2012. The shift supervisor that day, when contacted for an interview, remembered vaguely, maybe a woman with light blonde hair, wearing glasses, alone. I think she was in her mid-20s. When shown Emma's photo, she paused a few seconds, then said, similar, but thinner, shorter hair. I'm not sure. Kincaid ordered a check on the money source. The $1,200 was withdrawn from Emma's main account, which per bank records, was never closed, only frozen, after the owner disappeared. All access required two-step authentication and real ID. But at that time, the account freeze was temporarily lifted per an internal request from Tennessee's Justice Agency, something nearly impossible without administrative intervention. Hill tapped his pen hard on the desk. Someone in the system reactivated her account or allowed someone to use her identity, Kincaid replied softly. And that someone knew where Emma was. They headed to Asheville 3 days later. The mountain roads twisted, fog thick. The small city, serene, nestled in the Blue Ridge like a place outside time. Kincaid and Hill started probing around the old bank branch, then inquired at nearby motels. Most remembered nothing. 8 years had passed, thousands of faces gone by, but at an old motel named Silver Pines Inn, the young manager said, "I wasn't here in 2012, but the old owner mentioned a female guest named Ellen March, who rented long-term back then. No forwarding address, just paid cash weekly." Then one day she vanished. The information sent a jolt down Kincaid's spine. They requested the guest records, only a tattered handwritten ledger remained, scribbled, Ellen M., Room 3B, started May 2012. No full last name, no address, just a short margin note, paid 4 weeks in advance. That evening, they stopped at a small roadside bar. Hill gazed through the fogged window, saying if she was really here, it means Emma survived. But what kind of life? Under a fake identity, protected by whom? Kincaid pondered. Maybe the system itself hid her. Witness protection. Remember? The file she copied was a witness list. Maybe they used that very program to erase her from the real world. When returning to Nashville, the FBI's financial team completed the money trail analysis. The entire 2012 transaction originated from an intermediary account registered as DOJ Transfer Reserve, the Justice Department's internal code, typically used to support living expenses for federal witnesses, meaning the money Emma withdrew wasn't from a civilian bank, but from government funds. Someone in DOJ had reactivated a witness file under Ellen March and sent her money. In an emergency meeting, Monica Evers said bluntly, "We're looking at a real witness being reassigned a false identity for the wrong purpose. Emma Cole may have been forced to change her name to stay silent." Hill added, "Or she did it voluntarily if she knew someone would kill her," but Kincaid shook his head. "No, she didn't choose it. She was put into witness protection, not to be protected, but to be forgotten." That night, he sat alone again, looking through the frost-misted window. Under the desk lamp, 2 files lay side by side, Emma Cole, missing 2010, and Ellen March, Asheville 2012. 2 names, 1 birth date. The same hand had written both. February 2021. The mountain air in Asheville carried the damp of melting snow. The federal investigation team returned to North Carolina, this time with a witness search warrant signed directly by the Justice Department. The 2012 financial trail had opened a door, and behind it was the existence of Ellen March, the name both Kincaid and Hill believed was Emma Cole. After scanning temporary residency records, the tech team noticed a new name appearing in local tax databases in 2016, Eleanor March, living in the northern suburb of Asheville, in a quiet residential area named Maple Creek. Birth year 1989. No driver's license, no hospital records, no property registration. A nameless shadow in a small community where everyone knew each other's faces. Kincaid and Hill drove to Maple Creek on a drizzly afternoon. Along the winding road, wooden houses nestled among pines, windows casting warm light. They stopped at house number 118, where Eleanor March was listed in the power directory. The door was slightly ajar, curtains drawn tight. A woman around 30, with light blonde hair, wearing a dark brown coat, was taking out the trash. Hill opened Emma's photo from 10 years ago on his phone. The eyes, chin shape, nose bridge, nearly identical. The 2 agents stepped out of the car, introducing themselves with federal papers. The woman flinched briefly, but quickly regained composure. "Who are you looking for?" Her voice small but clear, eyes trying to anticipate the question. Kincaid said slowly, "We're looking for someone named Emma Cole. She used to live in Nashville, disappeared in 2010. A moment of silence. Then she replied, almost reflexively, "I don't know anyone by that name." Hill gently, "If you don't mind, we have a warrant requiring identity confirmation via biological sample." She looked at the paper, face expressionless, only whispering, "I need to call my lawyer." But then, in a moment, her voice lowered, almost dissolving into the rain. 10 years, haven't you let go yet? That sentence shattered all doubts. Emma was taken to a temporary interrogation room at the federal office in Nashville. Per procedure, specialists collected a DNA sample from her cheek swab. 2 days later, the results came back, 99.99% match with the original DNA from the 2010 missing person file. No doubt, Ellen March was Emma Cole. That night, Emma was transferred to the FBI's Real Witness Protection Facility in Knoxville. Agent Hill signed the form, subject Emma Cole, located, alive, cooperative, under federal protection. As she left the room, her eyes lingered on Kincaid, grateful yet fearful. "If you found me," she said, "it means they can too." The interrogation took place 3 days later, in a sealed room at the FBI office in Knoxville. No camera lights, no uniforms, just 3 people. Emma Cole, Agent Marcus Hill, and Inspector John Kincaid. Through the frosted glass window, morning fog blanketed the Appalachians in pale gray. The room's air was so heavy, you could hear the pen scratching paper. Emma sat still, hands clasped, voice small, steady, and chilling, like someone who had rehearsed an old story too many times in her mind. "His name is Lang," she said. "Victor Lang. He first approached me in March 2010, when I was interning at the Nashville District Attorney's Office. He introduced himself as a security advisor for the Witness Protection Division, under the Justice Department." Kincaid frowned slightly. "And you believed him right away?" Emma shook her head lightly. "No. But he knew my supervisor's name, knew I was backing up data for an internal corruption case. He said I was holding something a few people at the department don't want anyone to see." She recounted that day, Lang suggested a private meeting at a cafe near Belmont University, saying he just wanted to ensure her safety. He dressed simply, polite, carrying a Justice Department sealed card, and his voice low, gravelly like smoke from cigarettes. I remember exactly what he said. Emma looked down at the table. "If you want to do right, first you have to stay alive to do it." From then, Lang contacted her a few times via internal email, using an address ending in vudas.gov, but untraceable. He requested she hand over a USB copy containing the Operation Beacon witness list, a case involving Nashville police taking bribes to shield an arms smuggling ring. I thought it was part of the research work, but after handing over the USB, he told me I'd be protected. Actually, he raced. Kincaid leaned forward. "Do you remember the exact USB handover process? Location, time?" Emma nodded. "April 16, 2010, at the parking lot behind Belmont's library. He was in a black SUV. I later recognized it as the Tahoe you found." He plugged the USB into his laptop, checked for a few seconds, then said, "Good, we'll handle the rest." 2 days later, I disappeared. She described that on the night of April 18th, Lang appeared outside the library. He wore a state police uniform with an old badge number. He told me I needed to go immediately, because someone in the office had discovered my access to classified files. He promised to take me to safety, then hand me over to the Real Witness Protection Unit. But instead of taking her to a federal center, Lang drove her to Cedar Grove Inn in Lebanon, where police later found traces. In the motel room, another man was waiting. A man in a gray suit, introducing himself as Attorney Thomas Reeve. He said he worked for the Justice Department, but showed no badge. He told me, "You've seen something you shouldn't have. If you stay in Nashville, you'll die. From now on, you're Ellen March. Everything old is as if it never existed." Hill jotted quickly in his notebook, voice low. "Do you remember them having you sign any documents?" Emma nodded. "An untitled memorandum?" I asked. "They said it was a witness protection agreement. I signed because I was scared." After signing, she was stripped of her phone, wallet, all documents. The next morning, Lang drove her out of Tennessee eastward. I didn't know where. I was blindfolded. I only remember the radio talking about floods near Knoxville. When the blindfold came off, I was in North Carolina. They left her in a rented house in Asheville's suburbs, providing new papers, driver's license, social security number, even fake academic records. I was told this was a chance to start over, but the condition, no one knows you ever existed as Emma Cole. If you speak out, they'll end everything. Kincaid asked, "Who are they, Emma?" She looked up, voice trembling slightly. "Lang and Reeve, they came every few months, bringing cash and groceries. I wasn't allowed to go far, no internet, no contact with anyone but neighbors. I lived like a ghost." Hill flipped the file. Attorney Thomas Reeve worked for the Tennessee State Prosecutor's Office, quit in 2009, then joined a private firm specializing in witness supports in Franklin. Seems they used this structure to hide operations. Emma looked down, sighing. "I don't know who they worked for, but I know one thing. They feared a name in the list I saw on the USB. That person was in State Police Command. I think Lang was hired to handle the problem." Kincaid noted every word. He knew that if this testimony was true, it wasn't just a student's disappearance, it was the tip of a decade-long ring of corruption and witness elimination. "Do you have any remaining evidence? USB copy, emails, anything?" he asked. Emma shook her head. "No, they took everything, but I remember the decryption password and the original code segment. If you recover the device, I can confirm." At the end, Hill closed the file, his eyes meeting Kincaid's. Both understood Emma's testimony was the final piece they needed, but also the spark making everything dangerous. Lang was now in his 70s, living reclusively in Franklin. Reeve, per tax data, still practiced law, with wide connections in state administration. As Emma was led out of the interrogation room, she paused at the door, saying softly but clearly, "Mr. Lang once told me, you weren't kidnapped, Emma, you were saved from the truth. But now I understand, he was just saving himself." 2 weeks after Emma's testimony, the federal investigation team began a comprehensive cross-check across agencies. The Tennessee Cold Case Initiative coordinated with the Justice Department's Internal Affairs and the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Goal: verify every detail in Emma Cole's account. The investigation was given the code name Operation Mirror because they suspected the entire witness protection program had been mirrored into a parallel underground system, serving a completely different purpose: money laundering and erasing real witnesses. Agent Marcus Hill was the first to spot a suspicious match, the name Thomas Reeve. In federal databases, Reeve wasn't just a private attorney, but a contract lawyer who worked for DataArc Systems, a company handling witness protection data infrastructure maintenance from 2008 to 2011. Remember, where Emma interned in 2010 was DataArc's liaison office with the Justice Department. A perfect closed loop where Reeve was hired, where Lang once held a security advisor role, and where Emma accidentally accessed data she shouldn't have. When the FBI collected DataArc's financial records, the numbers started speaking for the dead. In 2010, DataArc had over $6.2 million in unidentified expenses transferred to a trust fund in Delaware, opened under a fake witness in the protection program, who had died in a traffic accident 2 years prior. This money was then routed through the Cayman Islands, returning to the U.S. investment capital into small legal consulting firms, including Thomas Reeve and Associates. Hill read the report and uttered just one sentence: "They turned witnesses into banks." Per analysis, Lang and Reeve exploited access to witness protection data to create fake witness identities, legal enough in the system to open accounts, buy insurance, receive relocation support funds. Then they used these identities to launder money. Origins from bribes, embezzlement, and arms trafficking. Emma Cole, during her internship, may have been the first to notice the anomalies. Kincaid reviewed the 2010 system logs. Emma accessed the folder coded WitPro Internal Audit at 8:32 p.m. on April 10th. The data file was copied to USB in under 40 seconds. 6 hours later, the admin account was locked, and the next day Lang was logged accessing emergently with system oversight privileges. 1 minute of hers, Kincaid said softly, enough to make them bury her for 13 years. When the FBI reconstructed the money flow structure, they discovered 7 more ghost witnesses, people who never existed outside files. Each identity shared a common point: health insurance registered from the same Nashville server IP, coinciding with Reeves' data arc contract period. These digital traces became nails sealing the investigation team's view. Emma's disappearance wasn't an administrative mistake, but part of a systematic cover-up. The report sent to the Justice Department was over 300 pages. With the assessment, former officer Victor Lang and federal contract attorney Thomas Reeve may have established a network to transfer internal witness protection data externally, creating fake witness accounts to commit money laundering. Emma Cole's discovery of discrepancies in records and downloading a data copy was the direct motive leading to her being coerced into changing identity. Emma was summoned additionally to confirm technical details. When Hill showed her the money flow chart, she looked for a moment, then said, "I remember those codes. Horizon 47 and Beacon Delta. They were the files I saw in the locked folder." Her confirmation turned the entire hypothesis into preliminary evidence. In subsequent meetings, Lang and Reeves' names were red-flagged. A financial search warrant was issued, focusing on their real estate and investment accounts from 2009-2012. The IRS discovered Reeve bought a vacation home in Franklin with cash, $620,000, from an anonymous trust. Lang, meanwhile, still received security consulting salary from a shell company with an address matching DataArc. Hill remarked in an internal memo, "The case motive is clear. Emma Cole was eliminated because she knew too much. She wasn't a witness needing protection, but a witness needing to disappear." He once believed Lang was a lone abuser of power, but now the truth stretched far beyond. This was a federal-level administrative crime, enabled by an entire system of oversight. The investigation continued to expand. The FBI discovered Reeve maintained contact with 2 former DataArc technicians, now working for a consulting firm in Chattanooga. One of them had signed off on deleting the entire Cedar Grove in-camera log, where Emma was held on April 18, 2010. When confronted, they claimed they received orders from superiors per witness relocation protocol. The deeper Kincaid went, the more he realized they were stepping into the shadows of secrets many wanted forgotten. He recalled Emma's words from her first interrogation, "If you found me, it means they can too." Now, with the documents they were uncovering, that statement was no longer a personal fear, it was a warning. In late June 2021, the FBI Deputy Director approved Phase 2 of Operation Mirror, opening a criminal investigation against Victor Lang and Thomas Reeve on charges of federal money laundering conspiracy, witness identity fraud, obstruction of justice, and intentional kidnapping. But in the hearts of those working the case, especially Kincaid, one question remained unanswered. If Emma was just a small link they hid, how many others, how many witnesses were protected the same way? And that very question, like a spark, would lead them into the next phase of the investigation, where those who thought they'd erased all traces would finally be exposed. In July 2021, as Operation Mirror entered Phase 2, the federal investigation team decided to undertake a critical task: reconstructing the entire night Emma Cole disappeared, minute by minute, mile by mile, using every surviving digital clue after 11 years. They called it Project 041810, the date of her disappearance. The FBI's digital forensics lab in Quantico was mobilized. Specialists retrieved all GPS logs from the tracking system of the 2008 Chevrolet Tahoe registered to Victor Lang. Although the original tracker had been removed, temporary data stored in OnStar's internal relay logs remained. After weeks of querying, a chain of coordinates emerged, each point lighting up a map connecting Nashville to Lebanon, then to the North Carolina border. 9:47 p.m., Belmont University Library. Campus security footage confirmed Emma Cole's final image. She walked through the main door, carrying a black backpack, heading toward the south parking lot. Light rain began to fall. Under the faint yellow sodium lights, a black SUV was parked 2 rows away, engine running. The frame was blurry from rain, but AI restoration revealed a distinctive reflection from a metal watch face, later confirmed as a Rolex Submariner model Lang wore. 9:58 p.m. Edge Hill Avenue. A traffic camera caught the Tahoe turning right at the intersection, hazard lights flashing twice. Extracted GPS data matched precisely 36, 138 degree N, -86, 785 degree W, speed 18 miles per hour. In the frame's corner, a slender woman's shadow hurried forward, arm shielding her head with a bag, matching Emma's description. The FBI cross-referenced data. At that exact moment, Emma's phone sent its final signal to a cell tower on 12th Avenue South, then went completely offline at 10:12 p.m. Immediately after, Lang's vehicle GPS showed a continuous 32-mile drive east along I-40, no stops. 10:45 p.m. Cedar Grove Inn, Lebanon. The motel server's record, though video was deleted, retained metadata. A file named April 18, 2010 2214 VLANG was created on the system drive. EXIF identifier analysis confirmed the recording time matched the Tahoe's appearance on a nearby traffic camera. At that moment, Emma and Lang were on motel grounds. Room 212, second floor, was booked under the alias Robert Clay. An electronic receipt showed the credit card used belonged to a shell company, Horizon Consulting, later proven linked to DataArc Systems. The FBI recovered an old printed invoice from bank archives, confirming Lang paid for the room at 10:42 p.m., the same day Emma vanished. 11 p.m., 2:59 a.m. The biggest gap in the journey. No GPS logs, no cameras. But in her testimony, Emma said she was held in a room smelling of dampness and an old air conditioner. She distinctly recalled a radio from the parking lot playing Need You Now by Lady Antebellum, first aired on WSM-FM around 11:20 that night. When techs cross-checked the broadcast log, the timing matched her recollection. Around 3 a.m., leaving Lebanon, GPS data lit up again. The Tahoe moved east on I-40. A Cookeville toll booth camera recorded plate 7DP914, blurry but identifiable as Tennessee format. At that point, Emma was unconscious, per her account. Lang said he used a sedative to ensure safety. By 5:37 a.m., GPS logs showed the vehicle stopped for 20 minutes at a gas station in Waynesville, North Carolina. The night shift worker, interviewed in 2021, recalled, an older man with silver hair mid-Tennessee accent, bought 2 water bottles and a coffee. Someone was in the car, I only saw blonde hair through the window. After this stop, the journey ended in Asheville, 7:10 a.m. From there, the GPS signal cut off entirely. 13 years later, it was in this city that Emma was found under the alias Ellen March. When all data was pieced together, the FBI briefing room's large screen displayed a complete crime map, 8 marked points, forming a red line across Tennessee to North Carolina, exactly as Emma described. No longer fragmented memories, but a precise minute-by-minute route. Hill stood, looking at the map. No way she imagined this. Every point matches. Kincaid nodded, voice low, and not a single discrepancy in the GPS logs. Lang wrote his own indictment with data he thought he'd erased. The tech team added 2 layers of verification. MIAS cross-referenced Cedar Grove Inn video metadata with the Sony G-Series camera identifier, matching the model. DataArc purchased for the Witness Protection Program in 2009. Matched trace paint samples on Lang's vehicle with micro paint on the plastic bottle found near Emma's car. When results were presented, Hill exclaimed, "We have the map, the evidence, the living witness." Kincaid didn't respond. He stared at the timeline projected on the wall from 9:47 to 3 o'clock, 6 hours that changed a girl's life and buried it for 13 years. In the official report to Washington, the conclusion was typed coldly but clearly. Based on witness testimony and technical evidence, Emma Cole's journey on April 18, 2010, has been almost fully verified. Victor Lang is the sole individual present at every data intersection. His actions constitute federal kidnapping, impersonation of an FBI officer, and obstruction of justice. When Hill removed the USB containing the 3D journey simulation, he turned to Kincaid, 13 years, and it all came down to 6 hours in the night. Kincaid replied, eyes fixed on the blinking red map, those 6 hours were enough to define a life, and enough to drag a man once called a police hero to the bottom. 3 weeks after fully reconstructing the April 18th journey, the FBI and Tennessee Bureau of Investigation jointly executed a search warrant on Victor Lang's home in Franklin. The house sat isolated on a small hill, 10 minutes from downtown, surrounded by old pines and a locked iron gate. Lang lived alone, rarely interacting with neighbors. From the outside, it was just an old wooden house, but to the investigation team, it was an invisible prison of memories, potentially hiding answers to 13 years of obsession. At 6:20 a.m. on August 2, 2021, the FBI convoy rolled up the steep road to Lang's house. The search warrant was signed directly by a Middle District federal judge. When they breached the door, the house was eerily silent. In the living room, a pendulum clock was frozen at 3:02, the exact time Lang left Lebanon in the GPS reconstruction. Some said he still set it to chime at that hour, as if reminding himself of what he'd done. The search lasted nearly 8 hours. In the second-floor study, agents found 2 500 GB Western Digital hard drives, sealed in anti-static bags, locked in a drawer. Nearby was an old Dell Precision 2009 computer, its system drive removed. On the case, in silver marker, Lang had handwritten "Archive." The data was sent straight to digital forensics. Preliminary analysis showed the first drive contained over 38,000 files, mostly .dat.csv formats. Structures matching witness protection program tables. The second drive held hundreds of scanned photos and documents. Among them, a folder named ALB_041810. When Tex opened it, the screen displayed 16 photos from the same setting, a Lebanon motel room, gray walls, yellow striped curtains. At the frame's center was a blonde girl, face pale, light reflecting in her eyes, Emma Cole. The photos were taken from multiple angles, some with her sitting on a chair, others standing by the door, shoulders trembling as if she'd just cried. File metadata recorded the time, 10:54 p.m., April 18, 2010. The camera was identified as a Sony G-series, matching equipment, data arc used for internal witness protection. No doubt, these photos were proof Lang held her at Cedar Grove Inn. In the same folder, they found a text file named ReveConf. Its contents were just 4 lines, like a private note. Received USB from Target. Data matches beacon files. Handed over to R as scheduled. Ensured she has no further contact. Electronic signature at the bottom. V. Lang April 19, 10:207 a.m. When the file was projected in the Nashville command room, Kincaid only whispered, "That's the final piece." Forensics continued sweeping the house. In the basement, they found a small wooden crate containing fabric fibers, hair, and a faded beige jacket. Inside the jacket was a label from Belmont Campus Store, the university's student merchandise chain. DNA analysis confirmed the hair matched Emma Cole, 99.98% probability. The jacket collar still had polyester microfibers, matching the 2020 evidence sample. Agent Hill wrote in the report, "Evidence confirms direct contact with the victim during the disappearance period. Fiber structure and DNA affirm her physical presence at the suspect's residence." Lang's home was like a time capsule. The desk still held neatly stacked handwritten notebooks, the first page of one bearing a slanted line, "No one disappears, only those who are replaced." The word silenced the team for minutes. When the hard drives were fully decrypted, the financial unit found Lang kept copies of a list of 52 witnesses relocated from witness protection between 2009 and 2011, most matching the fake identities Reeve and DataArc used for money laundering. This meant Lang wasn't just a kidnapper, but a technical controller in the witness identity fraud network. All evidence, hard drives, photos, jacket, hair, was sealed in 6 evidence crates, coded EC041810A to EC041810F. When the final report was completed, Hill reviewed each item, then looked at Kincaid, 13 years, and it's all here. He kept everything like he was rewriting history. Kincaid replied softly, "No, he kept it to control the past. Whoever holds the evidence decides what's remembered and what's forgotten." That afternoon, in Nashville, they held a closed press briefing with the Justice Department. The large screen displayed Emma's photos from the Lebanon room. No one spoke, only the hum of the projector's fan and cold fluorescent light on weary faces. The FBI deputy director concluded, "We have a surviving victim, digital data, physical evidence, financial trails, and witness testimony. The Emma Cole case, 2010, is officially confirmed as kidnapping and unlawful detention by former officer Victor Lang with accomplice Thomas Reeve. The final piece fit. 13 years of mystery closed in a quiet Franklin house where sleeping hard drives awaited their day in court. But for Kincaid, the case wasn't over. He looked at Emma's photo, her eyes blurred in the motel's light from 13 years ago, and whispered, "We found the truth. Now, it's time to make it speak." 6 months after the pivotal Franklin search, with all evidence arranged into an airtight logical network, the Justice Department issued its final decision. In January 2023, federal arrest warrants were signed simultaneously for 2 men, Victor Lang and Thomas Reeve. A decade and a half after that rainy night, the men behind Emma Cole's disappearance were finally called by their true names. At 6:15 a.m. on January 12th, with Asheville still cloaked in fog, an FBI convoy approached a suburban neighborhood in the west, where Lang lived under the alias Michael Van. Now 73, white-haired, he resided in a small wooden house overlooking the Smoky Mountains. When agents knocked, Lang was in pajamas, holding a coffee mug. He didn't resist, only gave a faint smile. "I guess you finally tracked me down." In the arrest report, Lang faced 3 severe federal charges: kidnapping and unlawful detention, impersonation of a federal witness, and obstruction of justice. As he was cuffed, he said something that silenced the team. "I didn't kidnap her. I kept her from others' hands. But you'll never believe that." At the same time in Washington, D.C., Thomas Reeve was arrested at his private law office. Unlike Lang, Reeve tried to negotiate on the spot. "I was just handling legal matters. I never touched that girl." But when agents showed the hard drive images, emails, and the R-Dorig electronic signature in the Reeve Cont file, he froze, face pale. The news spread within hours. Former Tennessee officer and federal contractor arrested in 2010 missing case, the headline hit every noon broadcast. Nashville media revived a name forgotten for 13 years, Emma Cole. When the 6 p.m. news aired, hundreds gathered outside Belmont University, where Emma once studied. A former student cried during an interview, "She never died. She was hidden." On social media, #Emma Cole Alive spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, Emma, now in a true federal witness protection facility in an undisclosed Virginia location, lived under 24/7 security, no media contact. When Hill visited, she said only one thing: "I want to go to court. I want them to hear me tell it all." Lang was escorted to the Knoxville Federal Detention Center, while Reeve was held in D.C. pending extradition. Before the press, the Justice Department spokesperson stated, "This case marks a turning point in federal missing persons investigations. A victim once declared whereabouts unknown is now a living witness, and those who once represented the law have become lawbreakers." On January 15th, Nashville woke to mixed emotions. Headlines blared, "Belated Truth, 2010 Disappearance, Revealed as Organized Crime." Those who lived near Emma's old home spoke of chills. "We lit candles for her for years. only to learn she was alive somewhere, just not allowed to exist as herself. In Franklin, Lang's house was sealed, becoming a long-term forensic recovery site. Neighbors said he lived quietly for years. No one thought the man walking his small dog was at the center of Tennessee's most infamous disappearance. In a memo to the Justice Department, Kincaid wrote, "We didn't just catch a kidnapper. We uncovered a dark file of a power structure that allowed itself to manipulate lives in the name of justice." That night, in Nashville, Hill stood on the Shelby Street Bridge, watching the Cumberland River flow quietly under golden lights. Right here, 13 years ago, Emma's Ford Focus was found. He texted Kincaid 2 words, "full circle." The Nashville community, once haunted by the image of a student vanishing in a rainy night, now faced a colder truth. Emma Cole didn't die from a random crime. She was erased from the world by those tasked with protecting it. In the interrogation room, when asked why he did it, Lang only replied, "She knew something that could cost people their seats, their lives. I chose the less cruel way." Reeve remained silent, his lawyer stating that his client acted under instructions within the framework of a federal contract. On January 20th, the federal court in Knoxville announced the preliminary trial schedule. Hundreds of reporters registered to attend. Legal commentators called it the case that exposed the dark side of witness protection for Kincaid. After 13 years, as he looked at Emma's photo in the file, no longer the girl who vanished in the rain, but a survivor who returned, he understood that justice may come late, but it never stays silent. In April 2023, after over a decade of silence and 3 years of intensive investigation, the case of United States v. Victor Lang and Thomas Reeve was officially brought to trial at the federal court for the Middle District of Tennessee, Nashville. The courthouse sat in the heart of the city, overlooking the Cumberland River, where 13 years earlier, Emma Cole's Ford Focus was found. Now that river reflected the faces haunted by the past. On the morning of the opening session, the courthouse hallway was packed with reporters, especially from national television networks. Crowds lined both sides, falling silent as the convoy carrying Lang and Reeve arrived. Both appeared in gray prison uniforms, faces gaunt but maintaining the calm of men who had lived their lives within the system they now faced. Lang, white-haired, hands trembling slightly as he signed the plea acknowledgement. Reeve, in contrast, remained utterly silent, only nodding when his lawyer whispered in his ear. In the courtroom, Assistant U.S. Attorney Maria Givens led the prosecution, a veteran of high-profile internal corruption cases. Beside her were Agent Marcus Hill and Inspector John Kincaid, who had relentlessly pursued the case for 13 years. When Givens stood to open, her voice was steady and clear. "Your Honor, this case is not just the story of a missing girl. It is proof that when those entrusted with protecting justice use their power to distort it, the entire system must step up to correct it. We will present an irrefutable chain of evidence, proving that Victor Lang and Thomas Reeve abused their positions, falsified a federal program, and stole 13 years of a U.S. citizen's life." The courtroom was dead silent. Kincaid sat in the back row, watching Emma Cole, now in the protected witness section, her face calm, hair cropped short, eyes no longer trembling as they had when he first saw her again in Nashville. Over the first 3 days, the prosecution presented the full chain of technical evidence. Layers of data were projected on a large screen. DNA evidence. Hair found in the jacket at Lang's home matched Emma's original sample at 99.98%. The lab confirmed Lang's fingerprint on the plastic bottle at the Cumberland River scene. GPS and metadata chain. The journey map from Nashville to Asheville was displayed like a red film reel along I-40, each stop matching the Tahoe's OnStar logs and Emma's testimony timelines. Digital files from hard drives, photos from Cedar Grove Inn, physical proof of the victim's detention, internal emails and Reeve Conf memo, the electronic text confirming Lang received USB from Target, evidence of fraud and obstruction of investigation. When the prosecution displayed the 2010 photo of Emma in the motel room, The air grew heavy. No one spoke. Givens said softly, "This is the moment the justice system was bent, and why we are here today." The defense, led by Lang's lawyer, argued that their client acted under verbal orders from higher-ups, that he followed emergency witness protection protocols. However, when the prosecution presented evidence of Lang withdrawing money from fake witness accounts, with funds funneled back to Reeves' company, the defense's argument collapsed. On the fifth day, Emma Cole took the stand. She stepped up, clutching her statement, her voice steady, each word deliberate. "I didn't die in 2010. I was just erased from the world. And the people who did it weren't street criminals. They were the ones wearing badges." When Givens asked if she forgave them, Emma replied, "I don't need their apologies. I just need the truth to be told, so others don't have to disappear like I did." The courtroom fell silent, only the sound of the court clerk's keyboard capturing each word. By the seventh day, under the weight of technical evidence and consistent witness testimony, both defendants opted for a plea deal. At a special hearing, Lang read his plea in silence. "I, Victor Lang, admit to unlawfully detaining Emma Cole, falsifying witness protection procedures, and transferring federal data outside authorized channels. I accept full responsibility." Reeve, when asked, said briefly, "I was wrong for staying silent." The deal was accepted. On April 21, 2023, Judge Eleanor Hastings delivered the verdict. Based on the U.S. Criminal Code, this court sentences defendants, Victor Lang and Thomas Reeve, each to 40 years in federal prison, along with the seizure of all assets and accounts related to their crimes. Both defendants are permanently stripped of retirement benefits, professional licenses, and barred from contacting any individuals in the witness protection list. As the gavel struck, Kincaid closed his eyes for a moment. 13 years ended with a sharp, heavy sound like an alarm bell. Hill stood at the prosecution bench, glancing at Emma. She nodded slightly. No tears. The next day, the Justice Department issued an official statement. The Emma Cole case, 2010, has been closed with a legally binding conviction. The file is archived under case #M 2010-418, closed by conviction. Nashville was quiet that morning. On the Tennessee Chronicle's front page, the headline dominated, "The Girl in the Rain returns and ends her story." Below, a smaller line, "When justice comes late, it is still justice." Kincaid left the courthouse in the late afternoon, standing on the steps as rain began to fall. "Just like that night in 2010, he said softly to Hill. "Finally, Nashville can breathe." And somewhere, in a secure facility in Virginia, Emma Cole opened a window, looking at a distant misty sky, rain falling gently, as if the past were dissolving drop by drop. Emma Cole's story is not just a cold case closed after 13 years, but a mirror reflecting modern American society, where justice exists, but is sometimes obscured by those acting in its name. Emma didn't disappear due to an accident, but because the system forgot that power needs oversight. In today's America, where trust in institutions and justice often wavers, this case reminds us that transparency and collective memory are the foundation for protecting truth. Seemingly small details, like hidden metadata in a file, erased GPS logs, or a jacket with clinging fibers, are proof that truth can be buried but never fully erased. It lives in data, in technology, and in the efforts of people like John Kincaid, who refused to let the case go cold. That's the lesson for America today. Technology isn't just for connection, but for reclaiming justice. Machines are merely tools, and what matters is whether people have the patience and ethics to use them for the right purpose. When the FBI concluded, "A cold case only stays cold if no one touches it," they weren't just talking about investigations. They were talking about us, about how Americans must dare to face the past, dare to touch painful stories, instead of letting them fade into oblivion. Emma Cole's final lesson is, in a democratic society, justice doesn't run itself. It needs keepers, people who believe the truth, though delayed, is still worth finding. Thank you for joining us on the journey to close the Emma Cole case, where the truth was finally found after 13 years. Please subscribe to our channel to follow more cold case stories where time may fade traces but never erases justice.